If you think the United States is going to walk into a bank and declare bankruptcy, you are preparing for the wrong war. That will never happen. Instead, they have a different plan, a plan that is more ruthless, more sophisticated, and most importantly, it's completely legal. They call it a soft default. This mechanism is the real reason why you work harder than your parents did, and you make more money than they ever dreamed of, yet somehow you feel twice as poor. If you want to stop being a victim of this invisible trap, you absolutely need to watch this video until the end. Okay, let's back up for a second. I read through thousands of your comments on the last video, and honestly, it was a war zone down there. It seems like you guys are totally split into two camps. First, you have the panic team. You guys are screaming, it's over. China is selling bonds. US is collapsing. It's the apocalypse. Then you have the realist team. You guys are arguing, nonsense. The US has a money printer. If they run out of cash, the Fed just prints more. They can't go broke. And you know what? Both sides are kind of right, but both sides are also missing the point. And that misunderstanding is actually the most dangerous thing here because it blinds you to the real enemy. Let's be real. You guys are smart professionals. No, the game isn't just black and white. The US government will never allow itself to be humiliated by a hard default. They won't just shut down and admit they can't pay. That is why they chose the soft default. Now, the word soft sounds nice and gentle, doesn't it? But in reality, it's like boiling a frog in slowly heating water. They aren't taking money directly out of your bank account. They are doing something worse. They are draining the value out of the dollars inside your wallet. They are paying back their massive debts to the world with diluted, weaker dollars. The biggest victim in this scheme isn't China or Japan. The biggest victim is the middle-class professional like you, like my best friend. So, why is a guy making a huge engineer salary in the US struggling to survive because of this? Let me tell you Sam's story. I want you to pay close attention to Sam's story because Sam isn't just my friend. Sam is the blueprint of the American dream that we were all sold. If you can understand why Sam is broke, you will understand exactly how the US government is picking your pocket. I've known Sam since we were in middle school. You know that one kid in class who just got it? It's the one who got straight A's? Followed all the rules and did everything the teacher said was the path to success? That was him. Fast forward to today. Sam is living in Oregon, working as a senior software engineer. He is smart, he's hardworking, and he pulls in about $160,000 a year. Now, 20 years ago, if you told someone you made $160,000, they would think you were rich. They would picture a mansion, a Porsche, and vacations in Europe. But that is not Sam's reality. He called me the other day, and he sounded completely defeated. He told me I did everything right. I got the degree, got the high-paying tech job. But at the end of the month, after I pay the federal tax, the state tax, the student loans, the mortgage on a totally average house, and daycare for my 2 kids, my bank account is flat. He said something that really stuck with me. He said my dad was a bus driver, supported a family of 4, and bought a house on a single income. I make 5 times what he made, and I feel like I'm drowning. How is that even mathematically possible? This is the doctor's dilemma, or the high earner trap. On the outside, Sam looks successful. But on the inside, he is wearing what we call golden handcuffs. The salary is just high enough to keep him working. But the cost of living is rigged so high that he can never actually escape. And here is where the soft default kicks in. So there are 2 Sams in this story. There's my friend Sam, and then there's Uncle Sam. Both of them are drowning in debt. My friend Sam has a mortgage and student loans. Uncle Sam has $38 trillion in national debt. But here is the difference. When Uncle Sam's bills get too high, he goes down to the basement and turns on the money printer. He dilutes the currency to pay his bills. But when he prints that money, the price of housing in Oregon goes up. The price of daycare goes up. The price of groceries goes up. So Uncle Sam is saving himself by transferring his debt onto my friend Sam's cost of living. My friend Sam is trading his time, his actual life force for dollars. But Uncle Sam is making sure those dollars are worth less and less every single year. It's a rigged game. My friend is running on a treadmill that the government controls. And every time the government prints money to save itself from a hard default, they crank up the speed on Sam's treadmill. But this raises a massive question. If the game is rigged against the earner, How exactly did they pull this off historically without everyone rioting? Because believe it or not, they have done this before. And the playbook they used in 1946 is the exact same one they are using on you today. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, this sounds like a great story, but is this just a conspiracy theory? Is the government really that calculated? That is exactly why you need to hear this next part, because this isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a history lesson. And if you don't understand the playbook they used in the past, you won't realize that they are running the exact same play on you right now. Let's rewind the clock to 1946. World War II had just ended. The United States was sitting on a mountain of debt. The debt-to-GDP ratio was about 120%. Does that number sound familiar? It should, because that is almost exactly where we are today. So how did they fix it? How did they get that massive debt down to 30% by the 1970s? Did they raise taxes to 90% to pay it off? No, because the people would have revolted. Did they slash military spending and Social Security? No, that was political suicide. Did they grow their way out of it with a miracle economy? That helped, but it wasn't the main driver. They used a mechanism called Financial Repression. Here is the secret formula, and it is brutally simple. They kept interest rates artificially low, let's say around 2%, but they allowed inflation to run hot, say around 6% or 7%. Do the math with me. If you were a saver, or if you bought a government bond, you were getting paid 2% interest. But the cost of milk, bread, and housing was going up by 7%. That means every single year, you were losing 5% of your purchasing power. But for the government, it was a miracle. The real value of their debt was melting away by 5% every year. They didn't pay the debt off. They inflated it away. It is a hidden tax. It is a tax on savers, a tax on retirees, and a tax on anyone who holds cash. They took money from the people who saved and transferred it to the government to clean up their balance sheet. This is exactly why my friend Sam feels like the finish line keeps moving. It is moving. The government is intentionally engineering an environment where your savings account yields less than the real rate of inflation. They are taxing Sam's labor without ever passing a new tax law in Congress. Back in 1946, this worked beautifully because the U.S. economy was a closed loop. They could basically force Americans to buy their bonds. But today, we have a massive problem that didn't exist in 1946. Today, the U.S. relies on foreign countries like China and Japan to buy that debt. And unlike American citizens, you can't force China to buy a losing investment forever. So, if the foreign buyers decide to walk away because they see this game is rigged, who is left to buy the debt? Who steps in to keep the system from collapsing? The answer to that question explains exactly why the rich are getting richer, while you get squeezed. And it involves a phenomenon called the Cantillon Effect. This is the part of the video that is going to make you angry. But it is an anger you need to feel, because it explains exactly how the wealth gap is actually created. If China, Japan, and the rest of the world stop buying U.S. debt, the United States does not collapse. The lights don't go out. Why? Because there is a buyer of last resort. That buyer is the Federal Reserve. When nobody else wants to lend money to the U.S. government, the Fed steps in. They sit at a computer, type in a few zeros, and create $1 trillion out of thin air. Then they use that magic money to buy the government's debt. This is called debt monetization. It sounds technical, but it's basically just the government writing a check to itself. Now, you might ask, if they can just print money to fix the problem, why is that bad for me? Why does that hurt Sam in Oregon? This brings us to one of the most important economic concepts that they intentionally forgot to teach you in school, the Cantillon Effect. Richard Cantillon was an economist from the 1700s, and he realized a simple truth. Money is not neutral. When new money is printed, it doesn't appear in everyone's pocket at the same time. It flows into the system like honey being poured onto a stack of pancakes. The people at the top of the stack get the honey first. The people at the bottom have to wait for it to drip down. In our modern system, the people at the top are the big banks, the hedge funds, and the government contractors. They get this new, printed money first. And crucially, they get to spend it before prices have gone up. They use this cheap cash to buy assets. They buy stocks, they buy real estate, they buy companies. This buying pressure drives asset prices up. Now think about where my friend Sam is. Sam is a wage earner. He's at the very bottom of the pancake stack. By the time that new money finally trickles down to him, maybe through a slight salary bump or a stimulus check, is too late. The honey has already touched everything else. The price of the house he wanted to buy has already doubled because the guys at the top bought it with the cheap money 2 years ago. The price of groceries is up. The price of gas is up. So, while the rich get richer because they own the assets that are inflating, Sam gets poorer because he is working for wages that are losing value. The Cantillon Effect forces Sam to compete for resources against a printing press that has infinite ammo. He brings his hard work to an auction where the other guy is bidding with monopoly money. This is why you see the stock market hitting all-time highs, while the average American is struggling to buy eggs. The economy isn't booming. The currency is just collapsing upwards into assets. But here's the twist. This system is designed to trap high earners like Sam. It makes you feel like if you just get one more promotion, you will catch up, but you won't. However, there are people who have escaped this trap. They stopped trying to outwork the printer and started positioning themselves on the same side as the printer. So how do you actually protect yourself? What does a wealth preservation strategy look like when you know the money is broken? Let's talk about the solution. You might be looking at your bank account right now and thinking, okay, I understand the theory. But why does my personal inflation feel so much higher than the 3% the news keeps talking about? If you answer that question, you unlock the final piece of this puzzle. And I warn you, once you see this, you can never unsee it. The most dangerous part of the soft default isn't that they are stealing your money. It's that they are gaslighting you into thinking it's your fault. The government and the news love to tell you that inflation is under control. They say it's back down to 3% or 2%. But let me ask you, does your grocery bill feel like it's down? Does your rent feel like it's down? Does the cost of a starter home feel under control? Of course not. That is because the soft default doesn't happen with a siren or a breaking news alert. It happens in silence. It happens when you go to the supermarket and realize that $100 buys you 2 bags of food instead of 4. This brings us back to my friend Sam. Sam feels guilty. He looks at his $160,000 salary and thinks, I must be bad with money. I must be suffering from lifestyle creep. Maybe I shouldn't have bought that new car. But I had to grab Sam by the shoulders and tell him the truth. Sam, that is not lifestyle creep. It is currency debasement. Think about it. In 1980, if you were a millionaire, if you had $1 million in cash, you were wealthy. You could buy a mansion, a summer home, and retire in luxury. Today, in a major city like New York or San Francisco, $1 million gets you a 2-bedroom apartment and a parking spot. The number is the same, 1 million, but the value has evaporated. So when Sam gets a 5% raise, but the money supply expands by 10%, Sam didn't get richer. He got poorer by 5%. He is running faster just to stay in the same place. And this isn't an accident. The central banks openly state that their target is 2% inflation. Let's translate that into plain English. When they say price stability of 2%, what they really mean is, we plan to cut the value of your savings by 2% every single year. It's compounding forever. Over a 35-year career, the target that stability destroys 50% of your wealth. And that is if they hit the target. We all know the real rate is much higher. This is the reality of the soft default. You are the one paying off the national debt. You're paying it with your diminished purchasing power. You're paying it with the house you can't afford and the retirement that feels further away. So, if the cash in your pocket is melting like an ice cube on a hot sidewalk, what do? How do you stop playing a game that is rigged for you to lose? You have to change your strategy completely. You have to stop saving and start preserving. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. If you turn off this video right now, you are going to walk away feeling depressed, angry, and helpless. But I didn't tell you all of this just to scare you. I told you this so you can finally stop playing the victim and start playing the game by the new rules. Because here is the secret that wealthy people know. The soft default crushes savers, but it actually rewards debtors and asset owners. If you want to survive the next decade, you have to completely rewire your brain. You have to kill the saver mindset that your parents taught you. I told Sam this, and I am going to tell you. You cannot save your way to wealth in a currency that is mathematically designed to lose value. Saving cash in a 2% interest account while real inflation is 7% isn't safety. It is a guaranteed loss. You are bleeding slowly and calling it prudence. So what is the alternative? You need to move from being a currency holder to an asset owner. Step 1 is to own hard assets. What is a hard asset? It is simply something that the Federal Reserve cannot print. They can print trillions of dollars, but they cannot print a mansion. They cannot print an ounce of gold, and they cannot print a barrel of oil. When the dollar loses value, these assets don't necessarily become more valuable. It's just that it takes more of those weak dollars to buy them. That protects your purchasing power. Whether it's real estate, gold, stocks in profitable companies, or even Bitcoin for the digital generation, the goal is the same. You are building a lifeboat made of solid materials while everyone else is swimming in a sea of paper money. Step 2 is even more controversial. You need to rethink your relationship with debt. My friend Sam is terrified of debt. He thinks all debt is bad, but the rich love debt. On a high inflation environment, a fixed-rate debt like a 30-year mortgage is actually an asset. Think about it. You borrow $1 million today to buy a house. The government then debases the currency. 10 years from now, you are paying that loan back with dollars that are worth half as much. You essentially shorted the dollar. You let inflation pay off your mortgage for you. That is how the rich get richer. They borrow money to buy assets, and they let the destruction of the currency wipe out the real value of the loan. And finally, step 3. Invest in your own human capital. If the price of everything is going up, the price of you needs to go up too. Your ability to solve expensive problems is the ultimate hedge. You need to become so valuable that you can demand to be paid in amounts that outpace inflation. I told Sam, stop feeling guilty. You didn't fail. The game changed rules in the middle of the match. Now that you know the rules that cash is trash and assets are king, you can start playing to win. But there is one massive looming risk to this entire strategy. Everything I just told you relies on one assumption, that the US dollar remains the king of the world. It assumes that even if the dollar gets weaker, it is still the only game in town. But what happens if the rest of the world, China, Russia, the BRICS nations decides they are done playing by America's rules entirely? What if they are building a weapon to kill the dollar for good? Is the soft default about to turn into a hard crash? Everything I just told you, buying hard assets, using good debt, upgrading your skills works perfectly. As long as one specific condition holds true, it assumes that the US dollar remains the undisputed king of the global financial system. But what if that foundation is starting to crack? Because while the US government is busy executing this soft default to save itself, the rest of the world is watching. And they are not happy about holding on to dollars that are guaranteed to lose value. You have probably heard the rumors. You've seen the headlines about China and Russia buying gold at record speeds. You've heard whispers about a new BRICS currency that could challenge the dollar. This is the nightmare scenario for the soft default plan. If the world suddenly stops accepting our diluted dollars, the soft default turns into a hard crash overnight. The inflation wouldn't be 7% or 8%, would be hyperinflation. The assets you bought to protect yourself might not be enough. So, is the BRICS alliance actually capable of killing the dollar? Or is it just a bunch of countries with failing economies trying to scare us? Is it a real threat or just a paper tiger? That is a rabbit hole that goes even deeper than the national debt, and the answer might surprise you because it's not what the mainstream media is telling you. I am already researching the next video to expose the truth about the BRICS currency and what it actually means for your bank account in the next 5 years. So here is my question to you. Do you want me to pull back the curtain on the BRICS alliance next? If you want to know if the dollar's days are truly numbered, hit that subscribe button and comment the word BRICS down below right now. If I see enough comments, I will make that video my top priority for next week. Don't let the system catch you sleeping. I'll see you in the comments.